Hello everyone. We're here taking a look at how we can use the visible or enabled properties on objects to solve some problems in our programs. Here's a little, I actually just took the program that I was doing the for next loop demo on. If you remember right before, what used to happen is in this program, input box popped up, the user put their name in, and then we just had this little for next loop that used the variable that is controlling the for next loop, that integer variable. We set it to run from 0 up to the length of string name minus 1, so that it would run through cycle through each letter in string name, and it put up a message box. It pulled out that character at each index position as the for next loop ran, and it put that character into a message box. Okay, now one issue, I changed this program up a little bit and I put a text box in here for them to enter their name instead of an input box. Still works the same otherwise, and I put a button in here. Now one problem is they could click the display name button without typing anything in. Right? Now there's various ways to solve that problem. One of the easiest ones though is to choose my button right here, and there's an enabled property right here, and it's set to true by default, but I have changed that to be false. So now when this program runs, see how that button, you can see it there, but you can't do anything with it. It's grayed out. Okay? So the user cannot click the display name button until they've put some text in the text box. Now, you can't just leave it that way, right? We do need to change that property at some point. So in my code over here, just in a text changed event for the text box, I'm putting the text box text in string name, and I just said if string name is not equal to nothing, then button name is going to be enabled. Or I just said btn name dot enabled. I changed that property to true instead of false. So real simple here now. As soon as I type something in there, that triggers the text change event. It checks to see if something's in there, and since there is something in there, I can click display name now, and then my for next loop is cycling through the index positions of everything in there and putting that into the message box there. And in the very end, you'll notice here that what I did in the very end after my for next loop runs, I put the name in uppercase in a label. I've also reset my variable string name to nothing, and I told btn name dot enabled that it was false again. And that way the button is grayed out for the next run for them to do it again. Okay, so it's just a very helpful thing to utilize to do that. We could change this up and deal with the visible property. So let's make enabled true, but we could go down here and same with the visible property, we can make this false. Okay, and now when we run that here, just the button, you can't even see the button. Okay, now and then changing it would be the same. And here I would just instead of the enabled property, we would just change the visible property to be true, right? As soon as that's not nothing. So then when they type something in, it becomes visible. Now I will say this, when it comes to a button or something like that, if it's a button that we're going to use frequently, I probably wouldn't change its visibility. Making it invisible or visible is probably not the best thing to do, but changing the enabled property is certainly no problem. If it's something that you're only going to use maybe once or something like that, then maybe making it not visible after it's been utilized could be something that you would do. So a couple of really simple properties that you may have missed when you're working with your objects, but they have really helpful implications. So you might use those in your final